We're
There
live.
we
We're
go.
recording.
There we go. We know.
Yay!
Steve,
Amazing.
great to see you and welcome to the Ocean Memos podcast. It's a real privilege to have you on the show.
Ah, lovely to be here. Can't wait to dive into the inner depths of my ocean life with you.
Fantastic. You know, the crazy thing with these podcasts is that I've known you for, I mean, how long have I known you for? I've known you for,
Since
we met in,
2008.
when was it,
So,
2007? They're about there,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
2008.
2007, 2008.
So, yeah, very long time. But the great
Very
thing with
long
these
time.
podcasts, you actually don't, yeah, a lot of things I don't know about you. So that's a real sort of opportunity. Before we jump into your whole story, I just want to give you a bit of context. As you know, I launched the Ocean Footage Mastery Program sure earlier this year, and I mean I've hardly seen you, so we haven't really had much of a chance to catch up. But what I want to do is just take you through some of the frameworks because my main interest, because today is really to get a better understanding of how you have made a career out of the ocean. You know, you have a passion for the ocean, and you know, we all say Steve just froths about the ocean because you absolutely do. And working with you is such a pleasure because of your enthusiasm. But that often isn't enough, right? You can have a passion for the ocean, but then there's a whole lot of skill sets and things that you need to do in order to actually turn that into a viable kind of lifestyle. I mean, you are a cinematographer in your own right, but you have a whole kind of plethora of things in your quiver. So before we jump into that, I just want to kind of share with you some of the, if I can find the screen, let me just see here. So I'm going to share
Yeah.
just a few slides with you that give you a sense of the Ocean Footage Mastery Program. So, you
Perfect.
know, it's really designed for skilled divers. You've got access to incredible locations, and what I do is I teach frameworks that help you to go from shooting, you know, average footage, unusable footage in many instances, to footage that you can potentially sell to the likes of the BBC or Blue Planet 2. Yeah, my background, as you know, Mark was teacher and other award-winning films like Blue Planet 2, that's what I've been kind of involved in. And the critical thing is that this program supports both part-time and full-time career aspirations. So really there's three key frameworks. There's the decisive cine framework, which is all about, because what we do is often, what we shoot is often so short-lived. This takes the whole canon of cinematography and breaks it down into an approach that you can use in the context of shooting wildlife and people, but very much in kind of dynamic situations where your control over the situation is limited. The second element is sequence craft OS, and this is the approach that I use on a 30-day shoot to come back with exceptional rushes that will, you know, please my producer, my editor, and ultimately the audience. And then the third one, which talks is the one that I really want to explore more with you, is really around ocean leverage OS, which is that, okay, you've got a craft, you have a passion for the ocean, but how do you stand out in the marketplace, and how do you turn your passion and your creative expertise into income, you know, independence and like lasting impact if that's your ambition. So again, I won't go through all of these, but you know, many skills that you need to become world class in the context of being an underwater cinematographer, which you certainly have mastered on many levels. That's just a sense of the sequence craft OS. And I use this thing: frame, explore, craft, and leverage. And I use that in both sequence craft OS and ocean leverage. And this is the key, Steve. And I'll be interested to get your thoughts on this when we chat just now. But you know, what I found in my life is you can develop, if this is your expertise, right, and this is your craft, this is, you know, as an ocean cinematographer, you can develop a very high level of expertise, but actually really only extract medium value or create medium value and certainly medium wealth for yourself. I know of many, you know, cinematographers who've had wonderful careers, but they've ended up a little bit bitter and, you know, not that well off. On the other hand,
Mm.
this is really where you want to be, right? Is you want to have high expertise and, you know, be creating a high degree of value. Because ultimately in a capitalist economy, if you're being rewarded financially, it means that you're adding value, perceived value in some sense. And that's really where the Ocean Leverage OS comes in, which is the entrepreneurial component, which is about, being very intentional. And I know this is something that I've always been impressed with you, getting into networking, personal branding, and then really building products that, wow the market and ultimately, you can leverage. So that's just a kind of a brief breakdown. I'm not going to go into that too much. But that just gives you some sort of context of, what I'm teaching, and really I'm going to kind of interrogate you in the context of those frameworks.
Geez, thanks, Raj.
Okay, so let's jump into it.
Great.
So, yeah, I mean, I'll ask you the question. So, sort of, what do you do, Steve? Like, if I was to bump into you and you had 5 minutes to convince me of what why you wanted investment or an elevator pitch, what is it essentially that you do in the marketplace?
Okay, so what is it I do? I have been asked this many times. I think the simplest answer is that I share ocean experiences. So what that means, if I break it down, is I've gone into multiple aspects of that, of sharing experiences. So I have a tourism aspect where we share experiences on the water for visiting tourists to Cape Town. It's my home, and I love doing that. And then while I'm out there with the tourists, we often get to see interesting observations, interesting sightings, and nothing fills my heart more than photographing and filming that. And I use those materials to either share that with directors or producers or cameramen or just anyone that wants to listen to me, really. And then we get to go out and do film shoots if it's of interest and share those ocean experiences on the screen. So I've started with that premise. Basically, the premise of my existence, if you want to call it, is I want to be on the ocean myself, living a passionate life, having experiences, and taking people along with me. So that could be just a tourism event where it's a once-off activity, or it could be a film shoot that has a longer lasting, wider range, but that's targeted at the cinematic screen. And that can actually be in writing. It could be a blog post. It could be a blue chip natural history film like I've worked on many times with you, but it could be a local newspaper article. And every time there's multiple levels of productions that need access to the ocean or need access to the story which we've presented to them. Does that touch on it? Does that start? If I, what am I doing? I'm sharing ocean experiences through the camera or through tourism. Both of those things sort of allow me to keep being at sea and keep living my passion. And that's where it all starts. Like, I didn't start with the premise of wanting to make a lot of money or wanting to work for someone else. I really value my freedom and my time, and where I can follow my own passions in the directions that I want to. So I guess that's the entrepreneurial side of my personality that keeps me wanting to do things for myself, but I love sharing it with people. So does that make sense? What do you think?
I think it's great. I mean, you've got well, let me ask another question then related to that. So have you ever had a full-time job?
No. I'll caveat that. For short periods, I have. So I'll give a quick backstory. Studied zoology at University of Cape Town, studied ichthyology, just study of fish, at Rhodes University. So I have an academic background. Always loved spearfishing. My first job out of university, I was working on a fish farm, which was great, but that lasted a year. And then I went off and I worked at Allowal Shoal in the dive industry for a year. I was young, 25, 26, around there. And then I right away bought my own boat, started my own website, started my own company, and haven't stopped ever since. So that was 2009-ish. So I've never had a career working for anyone else. All of my whole adult life has been working as an entrepreneur on the sea, using my skills. That's diving, skippering, logistics, organizational skills to build my business and work on lots of small projects. Sometimes it's a tourism project, sometimes it's a film project.
Okay, and who are your mentors along the way? Where did you get the idea for this kind of business? Because often, these things are being done before, and often mentorship is quite critical. Who inspired you to go down this path?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, behind everyone is like you say, a mentor, someone that you can bounce ideas off or gives access. So for me, from an early age, my father is an entrepreneur. He's always owned his own businesses, and they very supportive and have always started out just by building confidence that it can be done. And if it's fine, if things fall apart, there's always a backup plan. And you know, I have a qualification as a zoologist, and there's other things to do. Just so keep pushing on, keep trying. So initially and continually, right now, still, my father and my mother have been very supportive, which has been a huge psychological boost to keep going until you establish yourself, and working for yourself becomes a, a reliable source of income. At first, it's terrifying because you never know when your next you know paid gig is going to come along, but eventually you do it for so long that you get used to the cycles and you understand how it works. But beyond that base, I've had many mentors along the way. So both in the photography world, you would be one of them for sure, Raj. I've always valued the time I spend with you, and emulated some aspects that I've seen when I've worked with you. And Thomas Peshak was another one. Spearfisherman Mark White. Uh, these are people that I've built relationships with throughout my life, and I can always bounce ideas off them and get valuable insight. They all have different expertise, but I love to gather multiple views when I'm mulling something over, if you know what I mean. So, but I think my family would be a good start.
Brilliant. Now that really helps, Steve. And I mean, I think that's so critical because, yeah, that belief in yourself is so essential. And that's, I think, something that holds so many people back is they just don't have that self belief. So it's wonderful that you had that, and that makes a lot of sense. Um,
So, Raj, I'll add to that self-belief.
so,
It's a very can I the the self-belief aspect is incredible. It's something so like I feel comfortable going into a completely unknown situation on the ocean and figuring it out with a group of people. And I think that that can get bred and put into you as an adolescent or even as a child. It's the confidence to face situations in the unknown, but also believe in your knowledge and skills to get to an outcome. It's like, and that's what business often is. It's negotiating situations and navigating unknown situations with a goal in mind. And it's something you work on, something that you develop by continually going into situations and making your way through, I think. So, yeah, just a point there. I've been thinking about that.
no, I agree. I mean, I think it's I remember when I left corporate and, launched into the entrepreneurial world. I mean, I didn't even know how to book a flight. I didn't, all these things that you had people, specialist people doing for you. And then, as you say, developing that tolerance to live boldly, not knowing where your rent money is going to come from next month, it takes quite a lot of getting used to. And I think it's almost like a muscle. It takes practice. You need to, obviously you don't want to be rolling around in poverty all the time, but it is something that you need to develop. Um, and yeah, it's not easy. Um, so Steve, in terms of in terms of this journey, what do you feel has been, in terms of your identity and your own development as a human being, what has been so special about following this path rather than a more conventional path? I mean, do you feel like you've done the right thing? Do you feel fulfilled? I mean, do you have, what sort of fears do you have around the path that you've taken, if any?
Uh, yeah, no, I mean, I have no fears of the path I've taken. I've often thought about both options. Is it great? Would it be good to be employed? Would it be good to have a monthly salary? But I can tell you that there's no guarantees in that either. As an employee, you have no control over what's happening on the global market or what the owner of the business is doing. And as an entrepreneur, you have the freedom to pursue your passions and your avenues, also with equal uncertainty. I kind of think one is just masked in the perceived perception that you won't get laid off or the business won't fold, but you don't have any control over that. Whether I feel an entrepreneur can is more nimble in their movements. We can see where clients are getting attracted. We can see business opportunities. So I'll give you a small example. When I started out, I had a rubber duck. We were doing dive charters, and we were going everywhere that the normal dive charters went. So we Seven Gill Cow Sharks, kelp forest, but the seals were clearly a huge attraction. So very early on, I decided to forego all the other opportunities in the dive charter world and just focus on the seals. And in that capacity, we became specialists. We became the only people offering that one activity, and it boomed. So for 15 years, we had an amazing run of business where we were the only operator focusing on that one activity for a long time. And I was able to just follow the trends of what my clients were telling me. And I found that to be very useful. And now we're doing it in a different direction because circumstances have changed. But having the ability to change quickly is very useful for me. And I think that's what makes an entrepreneur successful, is being able to change with the times, but then also consistently deliver a great result. Like, you can't let anyone down because everyone must become a billboard for your business or opportunity or offering. And I really, that was key when I started out, is every single person that bothered to dive with me, I left them with the best dive that they could possibly have on that day and hoped that they would tell their friends. And inevitably they did. And things came snowballing back. So to deliver that, you have to have good equipment. You can't have any things fail. You have to be on time. You have to answer emails. It's a lot of very, very basic things that slip by. So it's just consistently delivering whatever it is you've promised to whoever it is that is working with you. And then things just grow, but they grow a lot slower than you imagine.
Just tell the audience a little bit more about that. I mean, I'm aware of why you had to pivot, but it's actually a brilliant story in terms of pivoting. And yeah, just take us through that briefly as to why you had to sort of exit the focus, your niche. Because I mean, that was brilliant, right? You found a niche and you really worked that niche, but then you hit a kind of unexpected problem.
Yeah. Okay. So we developed a product in Cape Town, which was diving. Well, actually, it was diving and snorkeling with Cape fur seals at one particular colony for a long time. We did it for about 7 to 8 years, scuba and snorkeling, but we dropped the scuba because the market for snorkeling was much bigger. Anyone can snorkel with basic equipment and have an amazing time with the seals. Now, the seals are key because they're remarkable. People love to take photos of them. They have intimate interactions with everyone, and they're deliverable. So every trip you can show someone a seal. And this was very different to other industries like shark diving or other diving because it's a bit more tricky. But seals were just easy and you could deliver on your promise. So we did that for about 15 years, developed a dive center, multiple employees, multiple vessels, got really big. We're doing 60 to 90 people a day. We also had huge marketing campaigns. We had all kinds of things that come with, like, I would say, a small tourism business, but a very busy one. We got through COVID by dropping the price and really attracting locals who happened to be looking for something to do. Our social media campaigns and our communication were key to that, to alerting everyone of what's going on. And we redeveloped after COVID. But then in about July 2004, the seals got rabies. And what I mean by that is it entered on the West Coast through blackback jackals, through rabid animals having contact with seals, got into the population, and we were seeing aggressive seals throughout the South African coastline, and it no longer became safe to snorkel with seals every day, day in and day out. The biggest effect would be for our staff, who are exposed to seals the most, and our guests. And it just didn't feel morally right, knowing that we're having multiple sick animals coming up to our boats, puncturing pontoons. So we cancelled. I didn't know what that meant. I made a decision to stop seal snorkeling, and then we had to retrench the staff, sell the dive center, downscale, change all the media, and pivot. I didn't quite know what to pivot to, but we only had one other product, which was ocean safaris, that we were already doing for our high-end clients. So some of our private clients wanted to snorkel with the seals just a little bit, but they wanted to see the rest of the ocean. They wanted to see Cape Point, they wanted to see Table Mountain. So we were already doing these trips that were a bit longer, a bit more involved, a bit more educational. And luckily, I spoke to a few agents and organizations, and they said, yeah, Steve, like, you can't do seal snorkeling, or you're not, but do ocean safaris. So we pivoted. We decided right then and there, well, I decided right then and there, this is our next big thing. So now we are viewing the seals safely, snorkeling in the kelp forest, which, Raj, I tell you, has become much more popular since my octopus teacher, by the way. I mention it on every trip, and you as well. So it's the film has really bolstered the South African tourism industry, and we feel it from that aspect. But the trip has become popular. The business has actually shrunk, so we had to cut our overheads. We canceled a lot of our marketing campaigns and people working on the media side of life. We've gone more with organic search, so using the reputation of our business over all the years to redirect clients to the new product. And actually, that's where I use a lot of my film, my video, and my photos. So photography for me has been key to showing people what the trip is all about before they get on the trip. And then we obviously hired back all the staff that we had previously retrenched on a freelance basis. And for the last 12 months, we've been building that direction and adding to that all the time. And I've always stepped away from the diving industry. So what I mean by that is more people can snorkel than can scuba dive. And actually more people come to Cape Town for land-based safaris. So we've associated our trips with an ocean safari just because it's more recognizable for visitors who might not always speak English.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've always tried to do is see things from the client's point of view. It's like, what are they looking for? How am I going to solve their problem? So their problem is they want to see the sea, but they can't. So jump on my boat and I'll show you the sea. They want to avoid queues and buses. Come with me. I'll be the only one on the ocean and take you out. So that's also something that I've always made core to what I offer is how am I solving someone else's problem? How am I going to speak to that problem? How am I going to show that the thing I'm offering is legitimate through reviews, through photos, through word of mouth? And those things sort of help any project you put your mind to snowball. So I always find that a project must grow bigger than just me. I shouldn't have to talk about it all the time. The media and the word of mouth and the reviews will, if they're good, they'll organically grow, I find. So yeah, that's a bit of a tangent, but that's some of my thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. No, I mean, it's a brilliant example, and there's other colleagues that have had to do, their business was premised on sharks. The sharks disappeared from Cape Town. They've had to pivot. And I mean, it's just the nature of the industry. You just can't, like anything really, you have to be adaptable. And I think you've done incredibly well in that. I mean, we'll get onto the products more around, when we get into because I'm going to follow the whole frame, explore, craft and leverage a construct. But just a little bit, one of the things that I'm big on and have become very, very big on recently is intentionality, is around envisioning, planning, you know, and I know that it's something that I've seen you do. Can you just talk a little bit about, how you do that? How do how do you kind of do that? How do you envisage a future and then work towards it? And what exactly is it that you do?
Okay. So I guess, I guess it starts with a life for myself. Like, what life do I want? So I want to be engaged with passionate people. I want to be doing things outdoors on the ocean. And I also want freedom. I want family time. I don't want to worry about, I want security. I think these are all the things that we want. So for me, I need to do that by being in control of my time. Um, so, and also the things that I choose to do. And I also want to elevate my business's profile so that I get opportunities, but also my personal profile so that I can ask a certain fee for my time, whatever it is I'm doing, and it'll be attractive. So, so practically, what does that mean though? So for me, it means empowering staff members or people that work for me to be able to navigate the business by themselves. I would rather instill a ethos in them than tell them what to do every day. So my ethos is just make the customers happy. Like, I don't mind if you refund a client because he's unhappy, or shift the times of the trip if you can, or just wait 15 minutes and don't leave a client behind. Just like the premise of all the decision making that they need to do is like, are we delivering a good product? Are we making people happy? And that's the main goal. That allows me to sort of work on the higher level stuff, the imagery and the marketing and
Yeah.
where I spend my time. But the actually, as a side story, is as an individual, I had to make a choice to hire staff members, and that was a really big decision for me because I got to a point where we were diving a lot, doing local trips, but I also wanted to go on expeditions with you and with Tom Peshak, and I was like, well, I can't do both at the same time, so I had to let go. I had to let go of my business and hand it over to freelancers who were doing the best they could. And I knew they weren't going to be quite as good as me, but I was like, it'll be good enough. And I'm going to go and do whatever other opportunity or job has arisen. So it took me a long time to be able to separate my own control over the business, to let it go, to be able to have people working for me. And normally you employ staff for things you don't want to do. So I didn't want to answer the phone and I couldn't answer the emails quick enough. And I knew if I just employed someone to do that, I would get more business. It would be better for my time. It would be better for everyone. And so we did. And it was driven by wanting to go on expeditions to film and to photograph, but also not wanting to let go of the local sort of bread and butter opportunities, which were tourism. And it probably took me like 3 or 4 years to realize that I don't have to do everything, and that they say, perfection is the enemy of good enough. It's like the trip went, everyone was happy, I didn't have to control it, and money came in, and we got to do it again the next day, and that's fine. I'll pick up the pieces when I come back from my expedition. And things snowballed over 10 or 15 years where you have an independent team that I'm always working with, but trying not to micromanage. Let them be themselves. Let them develop in their own way so that the business can grow. I got off track
So
there.
really, what you're saying is no. I mean, you're covering a lot of ground, but really, you're very intentional about the life that you want to live, the kind of lifestyle you want, and it all kind of starts from that. And then, in a way, you've evolved the business and adapted it to enable that lifestyle for you in many ways.
Absolutely.
If
Yes.
I'm correct in saying that.
Yeah. And I'll give you a specific example. So I knew that vlogging or social media presence is very important. And I watch a lot of content, and I could see that. So, for example, Casey Neistat is a huge YouTuber, incredible. And I thought, wow, imagine if I had a Casey Neistat do a video for me. I was like, okay, how am I going to do that? So I saw the people he worked with. Some of them are locals. Um, I followed their work. I befriended them. We did lots of sort of free trips for them, helping them build their vlogs. I'm talking about an individual called Dan Mace, a really great guy. Called him up. Hey, Dan, I've got a boat. Let's do something on the sea for your vlogs. We did multiple trips. And eventually, Dan goes to New York. Casey comes to South Africa. Dan brings Casey along. We show them a nice trip. And we end up with a vlog with millions of views about our trips. And I did this because I knew, well, you don't know anything. You hope that you're going in a direction that is useful. But sometimes you don't have to look at the end result. You do multiple free sort of passion projects, and then something else happens. So Casey's Neistat's vlog really helped us, and not a lot of YouTube videos do, but this one still is relevant today. We still get clients from that. But there are other examples where you sort of, they call it like you give, and then something converts from all the giving. So it could be doing lots of free dives with passionate people.
But I think
a project gets dreamed up, and then you have a project.
Yeah, but I think again, what I've noticed with you is your intentionality. I've seen it on shoots when we went to Tanzania. You took that little camera along with your little printer, so you took photographs of everyone after the shoot. You printed out photographs. Now that leaves such a great impression. It's very thoughtful, and I think it's these are the kind of things that I've learned from you as well. That I find very you are very caring, and you are very enthusiastic, but there's also a lot of focus and intention driving that. I see that you journal. I think you keep a journal, and you seem to reflect on things. And just tell us a little bit about that process, and how and why you do that, and how that specifically the reflection process. What does that do for you?
Oh, well then, thank you for noticing. That's very kind. The reflection process, I mean, I draw and sketch a lot, and I try to write a lot. I think often in life things go by so quickly that you don't get the time to digest very much. So taking a moment just to sort of incorporate that day's or that sighting's impact can just help it become more solidly part of your psyche. And it also focuses you onto why you appreciate something, like what memories or moments are impactful, so that when you see them again in the future, you're able to more quickly recognize them and sort of appreciate them. So I enjoy doing that. I also try to think of things that can make someone's day a bit nicer or brighter, that aren't always very expensive, but memories are generally people's most treasured assets, although they don't always remember them or recognize that at the time. But if you show someone a memory through whatever media you need, it often brings out a more impactful reaction than you can imagine. And they open up. Bringing a printer is a very easy thing to do, but it has forever memories. That thing will last on a fridge forever. And I try to do that I try to do that every day in life, I guess, with whatever I'm working on, where I can. Um, yeah. Thanks,
Do
Raj.
you do business planning and kind of forecast projections and things like that, or is it much more just premised on, this is the kind of lifestyle I want, and you sort of that's your guiding light, as it were, or do you do quite a lot of financial analysis trying to work out where you could potentially be more profitable?
Yeah, I'm definitely, I could, I could definitely say I'm not a numbers guy. My accountant I love them, I trust them, and I work with them, but I'm not always as financially savvy as I should be, I think. Um, Often I would rather spend more time on the water than I would looking at a spreadsheet, but it is very important. So I have forced myself to do the spreadsheeting and do the analysis, and that is what I would actually call work for me, which is something that I know is important, have to do it, would rather not do it. But you can't keep the lifestyle going if you don't have a good understanding of what it is you're bringing in and what it is you're spending money on. Um, so yes, I do. There are a number of aspects that um, we've added and grown on, some things that I wouldn't have expected. For example, we started renting cameras to our guests, and it quickly became a hit, and it quickly became a very strong additional part to the tourism industry. And you had to focus on that. Or look, we have a small shop, just caps and hats and t-shirts and kinds of things, and you can see the caps are the main seller. So you have to push that harder. So when we do expeditions, it's critical. Like I have spreadsheets down to the last glass of wine because you need to
So
know
just
where your
talk a little bit
margins
about that,
are
because
and where
you haven't really elaborated on that. But I mean, apart from doing the ocean safaris, you also do like trips to the sardine run. I mean, that sardine run trip every year is like epic. I mean, that's a big undertaking, right? That's not a
okay, good
trivial
point.
scenario.
No, well done. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, so since about 2009, actually the first year with you for Nature's Great Events. That was my first sardine run, 2008, I think. I think you had it already done in 2007, but I've been going every year since that. And what that entails for me is we move our entire dive center for a month and a half. We take up two boats, all the equipment you can imagine, and we rotate sort of groups of guests, sometimes cameramen, sometimes tourists, in and out of this very remote part of South Africa on the wild coast. We bring everything from the bed sheets to the dive compressor, from the cameras to the lampshades. We bring it all up. And it's critical for my business because it fills a gap during winter where Cape Town is a bit more quiet. And we have this huge internationally recognized marine megafauna migration happening up the coastline. So, and that's grown in popularity hugely. It's very difficult to do. It's for sort of skilled to advanced divers. It is incredible, and you've sold the dream by capturing it on film. And we've filmed it for multiple productions from Netflix to BBC, and it really can deliver experiences bigger than your imagination. And even for me, after doing it all these years, I know that I haven't seen the best of it yet. And it is a bit of an addiction to keep going back to see sharks and dolphins and birds and tuna and whales all feeding at the same time. And it's a quest. It is the highlight of my year and the highlight of my life. Just focused around understanding, observing, and being out at sea during that time. And it breaks you down, and there's a cycle to the sardine run. There's a cycle to every group that comes on the sardine run. And I've done it so much that I recognize it. There's excitement, and then everyone gets tired, and then everyone's unhappy to go home, and they always want to come back because they never quite see enough, but they've seen enough to make them happy. And it's the same for me. So I love the sardine run. It is like we could do a whole podcast and talk about that for days, but it's huge and logistically, and it's important with the spreadsheets, with the budgeting, with the planning that goes ahead, and with the deliverable is being able to make everyone happy on the expedition during that time. And we've
Stephen, and then
leveraged
just to
that because
talk,
we yeah, carry on.
yeah, no, just to move, because we sort of we're getting through the time, but to move towards your cinematography. I mean, you do promote yourself as a cinematographer, as a DOP. You've worked with me extensively as an assistant. You're rebreather qualified, so we've done shoots around. I mean, you've done logistics for me during Oceans, which has been phenomenal. But you also you are actually quite active in terms of, working predominantly locally, but you've done international work. And then also you've been quite effective in selling stock. Because one of the things that I teach on the program is, digital leverage. So what can you create that you can, that you can sell in your sleep? Something that because a lot of the oil products need you there, right? And there's only so much that you can actually leverage off that. But if you can digitize yourself and you can digitize your products, so just talk to me a little bit about that, and I think you've sold stock like of GoPro footage and all sorts of things. And I think that's really important for people to hear because it's absolutely possible. It's absolutely doable.
Oh, absolutely. It's not a problem. So, okay, let's talk about cinematography. So, like, I love going out there with the focus of capturing an image. So I come from a spearfishing background, which is targeted in its own right, but I don't like to hurt fish anymore. So I'd rather go out there with a camera. It's much harder and capture images. So I started with stills photography for me, and I really feel I developed my eye with the stills photography, and then took to film and video shortly after that. And I found that the skills that you need to be a cinematographer are not that dissimilar from hunting or from spearfishing. So, it's being patient underwater, it's honing your craft, how to be underwater, how your body and your movements and your timing influences the animals you're trying to work with. Showing patience and respect are all super important to getting those natural behaviors and being at the right place at the right time. Let alone the logistics and the guidance and the permits and everything else. Just physically being there is something you work on. So I've done a lot of work for local productions. So that's South African, it could be travel, news, documentaries here locally, and I really enjoy that. And then I've always had a supportive role in larger productions, like working with you or Tom Peshak, which I absolutely love. Um, and I've taken my cinematography to a certain level. So I have invested in the Sony A7S III and the Sony A7 II, I think it is. So I have two rigs, but I haven't ever pursued going on to the reds because of affordability. And it's interesting because I love being a cinematographer, but I'm very happy at a certain level, local basic stuff and stock photography. But I wouldn't want to pitch as a main cameraman on a blue chip production. I would rather be a supportive role for that. And that's something I've always wrestled with because I probably could do it, but it's not a direction I've actually ever wanted to pursue full time. So anyway, that's something to think about for myself. But
Yeah, and then just talk a
I
little bit
have,
about the stock. Talk about the stock because I know you've been able to sell stock and yeah, I think that's important because and again you've got great access, right? So one of you can dive like a fish. You've got incredible
yeah,
access to incredible locations, and yeah, you can build an
yeah,
archive like that, and as long as you know how to sell that, you can get a really decent return on your footage.
absolutely. Yeah, so I've sold a lot of stock footage over the years, um, from like GoPro 720 footage to
Mm.
4K GoPro to Sony, a little bit of red stuff, but all my stock footage has been in the sort of 4K to less range. And what the one thing I always listen to people on production, what are they missing? What are they not able to get? And keep in contact with people so that you can present whatever footage you have to fulfill a need, or developing relationships with researchers, production managers, and asking them like, what are you working on? What are you looking for? How can I help you? And then for me, like I don't have any content up on the stock libraries. I'll put up a Dropbox low res 1 hour string out with clip names. Give the editors as much opportunity to search through your footage as possible because you never know what they're looking for or what they're constructing. So I've sold lots of footage that I was surprised that got sold, but it fitted their needs and I had no idea about their edit. Um, I've put a lot of stuff on YouTube. Sometimes you get contacts through YouTube. Hey, I saw this footage. Do you have more, or do you have something else? So when I get a lead for stock footage, I always try to ask, what else can I give you? Like, what else can I show you? And today's technology, people will up-res footage if it's the right footage for them. Don't be limited by only shooting at a specific range, because if it's on film and it's unique and it's available, it'll get sold. The editors, if it's important enough, they'll make it work for that production. So stock footage, it comes and goes, a little bit less and sometimes more, but it is definitely an important revenue stream that's been useful to me. And I need to develop it more because it's something you can sell while you're not working. And that is part of creating the business.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what you've done really well as well. I mean, to get onto the topic of leverage, as you said earlier, the clips, a lot of the clips, all this content that you create, actually, when you translate it into a digital, whether it's a post or it's essentially a marketing signboard for your business, right? And it promotes you while you guys are sleeping. So, and I know we've spoken quite a bit about collaborating, and we certainly are going to collaborate. So watch this space. But
watch the space.
I think it's and it's been interesting. It's been interesting looking at the various YouTube channels that are really doing well in the ocean space, and generally the ones about like scuba diving don't do well at all, but the ones about lifestyle and about adventure. The guys are, some of those spearfishing blogs, they've got 250, 300,000 followers. I'm not sure how they're monetizing that, how they're, beyond advertising and things like that. But people are fascinated by the ocean. And I think it's, something which I'm really encouraging, my students to do is to find your voice, find your unique skills, the things that make you kind of unique, and start to talk about them, because that just builds, through that you build an audience. People get to know you. The footage represents you. And I'm really looking forward to, exploring and putting a lot of this into practice. Because on the cinematography side, I've really, I've established myself. But in terms of the creator economy, I've still got a long way to go there. So, I'm very excited to be getting out into the field with you and starting to put that into practice.
Yeah, let's go. That's the fun side of life. That's what we want to do more of.
No, it is. And also, the interesting thing is that, with the, there's definitely been a slowdown in the industry, and I've had 2 shoots this year and, very little on the horizon. And you suddenly go like, what am I going to do? Because as you say, the when you get used to those kind of adventures, they're very intense. They're very real. Like imagine not having the sardine room,
No,
So,
terrible.
And then really what you've got to do is you've got to, this is something I've become very conscious of, is you kind of get lazy, right? Like, someone calls you up, we need you here, we need you there. And literally you say yes as a cinematographer, and off you go, and it's all organized. But, these things change. Like in your life, you had, the seals got rabies. So now you have to pivot. And in my life as well, certainly the industry slowed down a bit at the moment. There's definitely a lull. So now what do? How do you evolve? How do you take that core skill set and evolve what I call meta skills? So meta craft. So you've got the craft of being a cinematographer. You've got the craft of, in a way, of being an ocean guide. Or, in a way, you're a blue water game ranger, right? Like that's what you do.
That's
you
it.
Take people. That's what you do in a boat. But, it's how do you evolve that into a meta craft? How do you take that same experience and that value and leverage it into a digital economy where people can experience and enjoy that at scale? And that's really what you're doing when you create a YouTube channel. If you create a YouTube channel about your ocean adventures, you're essentially enabling a much broader audience to
Yeah.
to enjoy your gees, which is the Afrikaans word for spirit and energy and that sort of thing, which is why so many of your clients love you. So I think that's something I just want to kind of close on is, yeah, really, really, really excited to see, A, how we can collaborate, but, that is essentially what you're doing, right? Like when you start to create digital products or build an audience online, if put it this way, if you can make 8 people on a boat happy, you can make
Yeah.
80,000 people online happy, essentially, with a digital version of that thing. You've just got to find that way of doing it.
That's it. Just got to find the way.
Mm.
Got to navigate the unknown, Raj. That's the continuous
No,
journey of the entrepreneur, is make it work.
yeah. Well, it's really been fantastic chatting with you, and yeah, as I say, I've always enjoyed your intentionality, your thoughtfulness, and also your commitment and your passion. You've stuck very true to this thing. You've worked through some difficult times, and I think it's a wonderful example of someone who has, yeah, really executed on ocean leverage. I think you've got a huge amount that you can still do in the digital space to really leverage it in a
Of
digital
course.
economy, but you have very successfully created a career around, your desire to be in the ocean every day. I mean, that's your kind of mandate. You want to be out there, and you found a way to develop, a successful business that enables that and also creates a lot of value for a lot of people. So yeah, well done. And yeah,
Thanks,
I look
Raj.
forward to chatting with you more down the line.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for
Okay.
having me. It's
Awesome.
been amazing.
No, awesome to see you. Yeah, I
Thanks,
look forward to
Raj.
seeing you in person soon. And yeah, thanks again.
Pleasure. Very soon.
Cheers, Evie. Bye.